Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
You know the quote. You've heard it. You know this one, right, Travis? Nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the American people. Do you know who said that?
I have heard that. I can't think of his name. That was that the circus guy, or is that just a misattributed quote?
You mean P.T. Barnum?
Yes, P.T. Barnum. Yes,
the same person that said there's a sucker born every minute.
Yes, that's the guy.
It's an interesting one because this has been attributed to P.T. Barnum a bunch. And then also it's been attributed to this dude, H.L. Mencken, who was he was an American author. He was also a social critic that was around in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. But it's amazing how sort of through a literary game of telephone and people watering down expressions and people grabbing little bits of the truth and cherry picking it where it's convenient for them, this quote has morphed into something other than what it was. So there's lots of folks that say nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the American public. That's a P.T. Barnum quote. And there's other people that say it was an H.L. Mencken quote. Either way, it's something that you've heard people trot out over and over again when they want to sound smarter than they are, right?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
So it's widely attributed, like I said, to these two folks, one of whom is H.L. Mencken. And here's the thing. If you go back through, and this guy was a writer, but if you go back through his work, you're not going to find it in any of his published pieces. So nobody really knows. The closest thing that anyone's ever found to it, and this shows you how different it is, people think it might have been a paraphrase of Mencken's quote, "No one in this world, so far as I know, has ever lost money by underestimating the intelligence of the great masses of the plain people." Doesn't mention Americans. And there's another version of this quote that changes it to "No one's ever gone broke underestimating the good taste of the American people." There's all sorts of different versions of it, and there's different versions of, I guess, the truth, because, well, it's just something that gets conveniently twisted for someone who is trying to make a buck. And look, you and I are here for this show. I think you and I would have loved it if there was an actual sort of Trump-related smoking gun in the James Comey book, right? Yes. I mean, we were just salivating, waiting for something scandalous and salacious to be talked about that was in there. But best I can tell, the whole thing is just, well, similar to that quote, a bunch of hearsay that's been twisted to make a buck or two here and there. Does that make sense? I really, really was hoping there was going to be something we could actually get our teeth into. But best I can tell, James Comey's no-holds-barred interview that he gave on Sunday night, where he called Donald Trump a liar who is morally unfit to be president, the whole thing is just one big opinion piece, right? There's no actual, like I said, smoking gun. No, Trump did this. That's your bombshell.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw nothing. I've been sitting on the edge of my seat. The guy wants to talk. You know the guys wanted to talk. The guys wanted to talk before he got fired. So now that he's finally got the stage, I'm like, okay, tell us what you got. Show us your hand. You've got something. Yeah. And I've yet to see anything.
Even if they didn't give us the whole thing, even if they just said, in this book, you will find out the truth about what Trump said and did when he went to, it's just like, oh, man. There's no, there's, the book's called A Higher Loyalty, Truth, Lies, and Leadership. And by the way, Travis and I aren't here defending Donald Trump. We're just saying that the book seems like a whole lot of nothing, even though it's already sold close to 200,000 copies and it's not even out yet.
I think he has to be careful because he has to weigh selling books with being intentionally misleading or lying to a point where he's going to get sued. So I think that's one of the concerns.
Well, I think the thing is he can't say anything that's not untrue in his book. Otherwise, he can get his Heine suit off. it just seems intentionally vague to the point where he's not really spilling any real beans of any consequence. And he's just, like I said, wrote a massive opinion-based hit piece. Trump called him an untruthful slimeball, I think. But here's the thing. I don't know if there's any untruth in there, meaning I don't know if he's presented anything in there as fact. And I was dying for there to be something juicy that we could get our teeth into and really talk about on this show. But I guess the big news about Comey's book is that there seems to be no news. Seems to be a whole lot of nothing. Nobody ever went broke, underestimating the poor taste of the American public. And that list seems to include James Comey.
Real radio.
104.1. Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
You know, just doing my due diligence, I'm going back through my notes on the James Comey book, A Higher Loyalty, Truth, Lies, and Leadership, which at this stage in the game has already sold, I think it's over 200,000 copies. There is no, like I said, there's no smoking gun. There's no outright accusation that we've heard of. Like, obviously, we haven't read the book, but there's no outright accusation of Donald Trump did this or Donald Trump said this. And I think there's a reason for that. If you say something that he says is not true, you can get sued. And anyone willing to publish this book had to be uber careful about what was printed in it. But yeah, it basically seems to be certainly a hit piece, but an opinion-based hit piece, not a fact-based hit piece. And Travis and I aren't here defending Trump. We're not saying this book is scandalous, salacious, incorrect lies. And we hoped that there would be something really juicy in it. Like, yes. We were just, we're like, oh man, he's going to publish that book and it's going to be, a whole lot of nothing, it would seem. But what's the quote? A person who sees moral equivalence in Charlottesville, who talks about and treats women like they're pieces of meat, who lies constantly about matters big and small and insists the American people believe it, that person's not fit to be president of the United States on moral grounds. That's what he said in an interview the other day. It's just, there's nothing there. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's kind of scandalous that a guy in his position is saying these things, but ultimately it's just somebody saying some stuff. There's nothing there. Although Trump did call him a liar, or if I'm quoting directly, an untruthful slimeball. That's kind of colorful and fun when you got the guy that used to head up the FBI being called a slime ball by the president. Like, I mean, there's your show.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh man, it's freaking crazy. Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that Comey would be forever known as a disgraced partisan hack who broke his sacred trust with the president of the United States. Do you think that's true? Do you think he had a sacred trust?
I don't think he had a sacred trust. I think the whole situation's hilarious, though. I mean, this time, shortly after the election, you had bipartisan support on both sides of the aisle wondering how in the world this guy still had a job. I mean, he was equally hated, possibly more by the Democrats than by the Republicans, because in a lot of circles, he's viewed as the guy who lost Hillary Clinton the election. I don't think that, personally, I don't agree with that. I think Hillary Clinton lost Hillary Clinton the election, and that Donald Trump is the reason that Donald Trump won. But exactly, he didn't help. So, it's funny to look at it now, and the amount of hatred that this man once faced, and now it seems like it's one-sided hatred. But it's funny. I mean, I'm not a fan of the guy, that's for sure. But I had hoped that he'd spill the beans, that's for sure.
Donald Trump came up with one of his names for him. That was like Bannon's contribution. Little Marco, Lion Ted Cruz, Crooked Hillary. He is now Slippery James Comey.
Oh my God. That's so awesome.
Trump said, Slippery James Comey, a man who always ends up badly and out of whack. He is not smart, ! Will go down as the worst FBI director in history by far. I'm just sorry. I'm distracted because I'm reading this directly from Donald Trump's Twitter. Like, if James Comey's book said Donald can't abide by the rules of grammar and punctuation to save his life, now there would be an accusation that has some accuracy to it, just because there's like parenthetical phrases with exclamation points inside them, and then outside the parentheses a comma, and he ends a sentence with a parenthetical phrase, and you don't do that. And anyways, he also said, I never asked Comey for personal loyalty. I hardly even knew this guy. Just another of his many lies. His memos are self-serving and fake. That's the one thing that appears to be like the one, this is a lie, I say it's true, you say it's not. There seems to be a question of Trump asking Comey for personal loyalty. And Donald Trump says, I didn't. And I guess Comey at one point said he did. I don't know. But Comey basically responded to Trump's tweet saying his book was about ethical leadership and draws on stories from my life and lessons I learned from others. 3 presidents are in my book. 2 help illustrate the values at the heart of ethical leadership. 1 serves as a counterpoint. I hope folks read the whole thing and find it useful. It's so much nothing. So much nothing.
It's pre-sales.
It's already selling like gangbusters. Like, how do you wind up the head of the... I just wonder what type of person winds up the head of the FBI that's, looking to write a scandalous, quote-unquote, tell-all book. They're supposed to be people at the highest level of law enforcement. These are the people that we trust. These are the people that we pour our tax dollars into. And, something somewhere along the line failed miserably if the type of person that was put in charge of the FBI is also the type of person that wants to write, a book with lots of pictures and large print and small words for the grab and read pleasures of the grocery store supermarket checkout line reader. That's what it's right up there with the National Enquirer. It seems just like a whole lot of garbage. And what I question, really, I suppose, more than anything else, is how somebody who would write this type of book was put in charge of the freaking FBI. Money making, skills on the mic, give me paid every day, and I'm out of the battle, just bow down, better act like you know.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
I suppose what we were hoping for, besides a little drama that we could watch unfold in the James Comey book, was some sort of prediction or warning or, look, you need to watch out for this, this, and this, because this is going to happen. And it wasn't that, or at least we don't think it is. We haven't read the book, but if they had an instance of that, that would be being used to help sell copies. The James Comey book, like I said, seems like a whole lot of nothing. And what we'd hoped for was, hey, watch out for this, because this is definitely happening. You know who did a lot of that, Travis? Who said, this is a thing that you need to be made aware of, and it sounds fantastical and out of whack, and there's going to be people who tell you it's not the truth, but it is the truth. You know who did that in a way that James Comey apparently did not in his book?
I don't think that I do.
Art Bell.
Yeah.
Art Bell passed away on Friday outside of Las Vegas at the age of 72. I'm sure you know who he is, but if you didn't, he was the radio host who is mainly known for, conspiracy theories. He had an incredible nationally syndicated show called Coast to Coast. No cause of death has been announced, but I'm sure there will be conspiracy theories, and I'm sure he'll be only too happy with that.
Let's run down some things. You believe aliens have abducted some people on this planet? I believe it's possible. Really, Whitley Strieber? I do. Whitley's a good friend. Crop circles? Undeniable. Doug and Dave with a chain and board? Well, yes, that accounts for some of them. Not 10-acre crop circles with 192 rings.
Ghosts?
Absolutely.
People call about ghosts?
All the time.
They hear them? See them?
Yes.
See, that was compelling stuff. Did you listen to him much back in the day, Travis?
Oh, God, yeah. I still listen to Coast with George Norrie. But yeah, I listened to Art Bell. Of course I did.
I mean, Art Bell was a game changer. He was a game changer who kept us all enthralled for countless hours. He had a way of opening our minds, and he made us question what was possible. And he helped us rediscover. This was the important part to me. You know your imagination when you're a kid. It's vivid, it's bright, it runs wild, it runs unencumbered. You can take little trips into your own mind when you're a kid and spend forever in there. And well, that's what Art Bell did for us. I think he helped us rediscover the wonder of our childhood imaginations with his show. And also, he reminded us of the things that could make radio magical. You know what I mean? Like, there's the reason why I do this, the reason why Travis does this, the reason why all of us in radio, for the most part, do this is because there's something truly wondrous and magical about radio, about the way amplitude, what's AM stand for again, Travis?
Amplitude modulation.
Amplitude modulation and frequency modulation, AM and FM. There's something magical about what these things do to sound and the human voice and all this stuff that happens when something goes out over the radio airwaves, as it were, before it hits your ear. There's something in and of itself that's magical about that. But when you throw in this idea that it's, and this is kind of nerdy inside radio baseball, but a lot of people will tell you that radio is this thing called theater of the mind, and that's one of the things that makes it so special. And that's one of the reasons why people keep coming back to radio, because it's something that engages your mind, engages your imagination, engages your ability to create pictures and worlds inside your mind with a little help, because it only appeals to one of those senses that you've got. It allows the rest of you to fill things in a very cool and very interesting and very unique way. And I think Art Bell, what made him special was he got that more than pretty much anyone else. He understood the idea of theater of the mind. He understood how to grab and hold your attention by engaging your imagination. And if there's one person that clearly illustrated what it was that made radio magical and made all of us want to do it, I think that would have been him. I used to be in this band, and we would be on tour in the middle of the night, and he was on in the middle of the night. You want to know how he wound up being on in the middle of the night, how that was a thing for him, Travis?
Yeah, because I honestly have no idea. I just know that he came on at 10 or 11 p.m. and was on all night. Maybe it was even midnight that he came on. I think it was midnight, wasn't it?
I guess it depended what time zone you were in. I think if you're on the West Coast, west of the Rockies, as he used to say, I think that if you were on the West Coast, it was before midnight. And I mean, the show changed a lot and moved a lot over the years, but I think one of the things that made it kind of interesting and cool was he got into radio. He was bored. He was a music jock, like a rock jock, and got bored with that, left, and started I believe like a something to do with cable broadcasting. I could be wrong. I might be way off, but he was sort of sucked back into some folks said, "Hey, how would you feel about doing like a weekend shift?" And he realized that at night, when other stations sort of went dark, that through the magic of radio at the time, he would wind up hitting 13 different states. And he realized, oh my gosh, this sort of like being able to speak to people nationally in the middle of the night was incredible. And so that's how it ended up. Like, the station he was on was a 50,000 watt station, and it didn't necessarily reach 13 states during the day, but at night, for whatever reason, you probably understand this better than I do. I've never been good with the tech side of radio, Travis, but he reached like 13 different states, and all of a sudden he was connected to this massive audience. He was like, ooh, there's really something here. And people's minds worked in a different way overnight. And, you know, if you're on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon trying to talk about the things that he was talking about, you know, like if you were on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon talking about interdimensional portals and the fact that we were descended from aliens and chupacabras and things of that nature. That's what hooked me in. It was a chupacabra broadcast. I was like, he was talking about chupacabras and people that had seen them, and now there were pictures of them and all this sort of stuff. And like, at the time, my band was on tour and we were driving through the desert, and I was straight up, you know, it was middle of the night, and I remember our tour bus driver switched him on, and our bass player was really into Art Bell, and he was like, oh, this guy's the greatest. And I was listening to him, looking by the side of the road as we're going through the desert, maybe even in New Mexico, which is chupacabra territory, I think, according to the show. And I was like trying to spot the chupacabras. Never did see a one, but I was just hooked after that. And there's something about his art form that wouldn't have worked during the daytime. And it was just, I don't know. It was a brilliant and incredible thing. And, you know, he was a controversial figure, and a lot of different things have been said about him over the years. But like I said, he was a game changer who kept us all enthralled for countless hours. He opened our minds, and he made us question what was possible, and he helped us rediscover the wonder of our childhood imaginations. And for that reason, I think a little piece of us went when he went on a Friday the 13th, which I'm sure
crazy.
He would have loved, actually. All right.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Did you, was that a thing? You used to listen to him a lot?
Yeah. I mean, I did. And I'm trying to remember, like, I guess like after high school, I was just up in the middle of the night a lot, and like, not like sitting at home, but like going places. Anytime I was in the car and it was, you know, late at night, I'd put it on. And I was never like during high school or growing up or anything, I was never an AM radio kind of guy, but somehow I discovered him. I don't remember if somebody told me about him, or I think that's what it was. Somebody was like, oh, you got to check this show out. And they turned it on, and I was like, what is this? And I remember one time I was driving home, and they were talking about aliens, and like listening to these, you know, the crazy people come out at night, listening to these people call in and tell about their alien experiences. It scared me so bad I had to turn it off, because I'm like, I'm in the middle of nowhere out in the country.
He made it real for you, didn't he?
Oh my God, it was terribly terrifying. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I thought I was going to get abducted.
Look, listen to you. On the one hand, you're dismissing these folks as crazy, but on the other hand, it freaked you out enough to where you had to turn it off because you were scared out of your mind. So who's the crazy one, my friend?
I think I am. I think I am.
It's amazing though. Radio is like just this incredible thing. Like, I'm sorry, I'm maybe getting off track a little bit here, but this is why we do what we do. It's magical. There's parts of the country where this show's on when lots of people are awake. There's parts of this country where this show's on where there aren't that many people awake. But you know what's amazing? Someone's always listening. Like, someone's always listening. Doesn't matter what time of day I do a show. It could be like in the thick of it during drive time in a big city, or it could be way after bedtime in a tiny little town. But I know there's always somebody listening. And sometimes I think probably because of listening to Art Bell, if I'm on in the times when I've been on late at night, or if I've been the overnight person, like my first job ever was I was an overnight guy. And like, I would get these emails from people and these tweets and stuff, and I would just know, oh man, you know, like I might not have the audience that a person that's on in morning drive or afternoon drive has, but I've got like this really kind of more intimate, somewhat deeper connection with the person that I'm talking to. It's a much more personal thing late at night, and that's what Art Bell did so well. I kind of miss being on overnight. I've been an insomniac my entire life, and so I knew I was talking to other folks that were up at the same time as me, and also someone who had been listening to Art Bell for years. You just knew there was this very special connection, because usually when someone's on at like, 2-3 in the morning, you're talking to people that are not up with other folks. They're up by themselves. They're driving, they're working late, they're maybe doing homework, they're maybe writing a paper, they're maybe doing something, but chances are they're not out and about. They're not out to dinner. They're not socializing. They're not in the car with other people. So when you're on at that time, it's this really special one-on-one connection that you feel like you have with, I don't know, like a little segment of society that doesn't exist the way other folks do, or at least that night they're not existing the way other folks do. And there's something really cool and strangely satisfying about that. And if you've been on one end or the other, whether you're the person doing the talking or whether you're the person doing the listening or perhaps calling in or something like that, if you've ever caught a show like Art Bell, specifically if you caught Art Bell, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Nori does a fantastic job with Coast to Coast AM. He really does. But Art tapped into something that was really special in a way that not too many other folks did.
And it's funny though, because when you'd listen, you could hear the relationship that was there. You know, and you're exactly right. In the middle of the night are when relationships are forged. And it's funny because, I mean, I remember working overnights and the people who'd call in and talk to you, the people who'd email you or be like, hey man, I drive back and forth to work, you know, in the middle of the night and I listen to you all the time. And it's like, wow, that's crazy, you know, and you just, it's a deeper relationship. And with Art Bell, you would hear that and with the callers, and the callers would always, it was almost never like a trolling relationship. Nobody would ever call. And I don't know.
He was always, you're right. He was always so respectful to his listeners, and his listeners were so respectful to him. Like, it could have been somebody talking about the most cockamamie out there thing you've ever heard in your life. And he would, he made I guess that's it. He made everybody feel special when they were listening to his show, and especially the callers, you know, like, you're absolutely right. That's, that's good stuff. And he, of course, like, he was on 600 radio stations with this stuff. And so he had that really deep connected one-on-one relationship with people, but massive amounts of them, millions of them. So it was like this incredible, there's a lot of people that'll tell you, people that are on radio shows that are maybe in smaller markets or, you know, syndicated shows that don't have that many affiliates, that other people might have a broad relationship, but ours goes deeper. Well, Art Bell had millions of people listening, but he had this incredible, really, really special, deep one-on-one connection with every last person that listened to his radio show, which was really cool and really special. And like I said, a big part of the reason why, well, I'm doing this and talking to you now. So if you are a long-time listener, or maybe you're a first-time listener, welcome, and thank you so much for being a part of the radio family. And it really is that. It's a family, and I appreciate you. You're the absolute best. And good night to Art Bell.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away.
More AD on the radio.
So, Starbucks is, well, I mean, straight up, Starbucks is a drug and I'm addicted. I pay entirely too much money for their coffee on a regular basis. But one of the things about Starbucks is they're a little, would you say they're preachy, Travis?
Oh God, yes. I wouldn't say they're a little preachy. I would say that they're a lot preachy.
And would you say what's the expression people use? They like to virtue signal. Signal. That's the
yes.
We are more sophisticated and we are more morally upright than the rest of the world because we believe in X, Y, and Z. One of those letters is equality, and that's why it's somewhat ironic that a couple guys were arrested. Starbucks has been forced to apologize. after they had 2 black guys arrested for waiting for a friend.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yes. By the way, now apparently also it's illegal to knock on a stranger's door for help while black. Did you see this thing? There's a 14-year-old guy called Brennan Walker in Rochester Hills, Michigan. Thursday morning, he missed his bus to school. His mom had taken his phone away and he was lost. So he went up to a random house and knocked on the door for help. Brennan's black, and the woman who answered the door was white, and she started yelling, "Why are you trying to break into my house?" Because obviously the way to break into someone's house is by knocking on the front door.
Of course.
He tried to explain he was a student and needed directions, but she kept yelling, and then her husband walked down the stairs and shot at him. Fortunately, he missed, and they had one of those Ring doorbells which recorded everything. So this past Friday, just gone by, Jeffrey was arrested for assault with intent to murder and felony use of a firearm. Thanks to that Ring doorbell, which is meant to keep you safe. Hold on, let's just take a listen to this.
I'm kind of happy that I didn't become like a statistic. Got to the house, and I knocked on the lady's door. Then she started yelling at me. And she was like, "Why are you trying to break into my house?" And I was trying to explain to her that I was trying to get directions to Rochester High. And she kept yelling at me. The guy came downstairs, and then he grabbed the gun, and I saw it, and then I started to run. And then that's when I heard the gunshot.
I got to tell you, though, in Texas, where Travis is from, and I've spent a good portion of my life, I wouldn't go up to someone's front door kind of for fear of being shot. You know what I mean?
No.
Dude, I'll never forget, and I am as white as they come, but I will never forget turning around in someone's driveway, literally just turning around in someone's driveway because I was lost. I don't even remember what the hell I was looking for. And the driveway was a long one. The house was really far away from the entrance to the driveway. And so I pull into this dude's driveway just literally to turn around, and I see guy on his porch get up and clearly cock a shotgun. And I was like, oh my God, and just peeled out as fast as I could. So yeah, people being unreasonable with firearms when you come near their house is not limited strictly to 14-year-old black dudes. I know, because as an adult white male, I had a gun pulled on me when I tried to turn around in someone's driveway. So that's just common sense in Texas. You know, like, does somebody have to enter your home before you can shoot them?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
At what point, you were a cop, at what point are you allowed, well, you want to be careful how you dispense this information, but like...
You have to be able to pretty clearly articulate that you believe that they were trying to get into your house and that they were trying to hurt you. I mean, it has to be pretty clear intent there. Somebody knocking on the door to ask for directions, pretty obvious that they weren't trying to do anything to hurt you. And thank God that Ring doorbell was there to save that poor kid, because that's...
Well, and also to provide evidence that the poor kid hadn't done anything wrong, because otherwise it would just, you turn into this he said, she said.
Exactly.
Thing, but,
yeah. It's but no, I'm just as cautious as you. And it's funny because you've talked about this before, especially in the city of Houston. It doesn't take long to drive where you're suddenly no longer in a city, urban environment, and all of a sudden you're in a real country environment, and long driveways out in the middle of the woods. I mean, like, you have... It's unbelievable how quickly the scenery changes from inside city limits to all of a sudden you're out in the country somewhere. And I grew up outside the city in the country, and oh my God.
This is where I got the shotgun. I don't know if you'd say it was pulled on me, because he just, like, literally the guy was sitting in a rocking chair on his porch,
close
and
enough.
like I pulled in and I saw him just grab it, and it was a pump action, and do that thing that you do with one hand. And I was like, holy freaking God, I am getting out of here as fast as I possibly can. I was just like, but it was up on that. It was the side of town that you're from, the north side of Houston, that happened in. And it was one of those situations where it's like reasonably well developed area. Oh, here's a long road with about 2 houses on it, and they're all really far back from. Okay, and oh man, never coming back here again ever.
It reminds me of I'm here for Ray Finkel and a clean pair of pants. Ace Ventura. Oh my God. But yes, it's super sketchy. Super sketchy. I'm always careful. I'm always terrified anytime I turn around in somebody's driveway. I'm always terrified at the concept of going up to somebody's door and knocking on their door, because I'm like, my God, I don't know, especially if I don't know the house, that I don't know the neighborhood. Whew.
Yeah. I you know, as a kid, I might have gone up to someone's house and knocked on their door and asked for help. But like, can you remember the last time you knocked on someone's door and didn't know them?
No, I don't. And I would probably rather be lost and never be helped than go up to some stranger's door, not knowing if they welcome strangers.
I think the last time I did it was when I was returning a lost dog that I found in the street. And like, it was like, oh man, this has nothing to do with anything, but boy, did I get angry. Like, cause I found this dog in the middle of the road, like could easily have gotten hit by a car. And I was like, I picked it up and looked at the address on its tag and returned it to its owner. And I was like, hey, your dog was wandering out in the middle of the street. And they're like, yeah, so he just, wanders around and comes back when he wants to. I was like, oh, I hate you so much. Like, I wanted to take the dog and just leave, but at that point I couldn't because the dog had run inside. And I was just like, ugh. Anyways, like I said, that has nothing to do with anything. A little later on in the show, we'll get into how Starbucks has been forced to apologize after they had 2 black guys arrested for the crime of waiting for friends.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So, Starbucks has been forced to apologize, and rightly so, after they had 2 black guys arrested for, well, best as we can tell, being black. Now, here's the thing. Starbucks, as much as I love their delicious and highly caffeinated coffee, is a company that is not all that shy about what I suppose the kids are calling virtue signaling, saying we are morally and ethically superior to other people because of X, Y, and Z. One of those letters, X, Y, or Z, take your pick, has oftentimes been in reference to the idea of equality. So it was, can open worms everywhere for the folks over at Starbucks after what happened in, I think, Philadelphia this past week, just gone by. We'll get into it a little later on in the show. Right now, though, Travis, go lightly. Let's take a look at the events of today. What is going on in the news?
Khloe Kardashian gave birth to a baby girl.
Yes. Sources say the baby looks like Khloe, but the way she immediately grabbed for the nearest breast, that's all baby daddy Tristan. That's all this family needs. Another girl with daddy issues.
So true.
Yeah. Natural childbirth, by the way, which for that family means it was recorded by 6 different camera crews. What else?
Whoopi Goldberg says public riots over Robert Mueller's getting fired would be fun to watch.
Really? Whoopi used to do stand-up comedy, right?
I think she did.
I think there's people that here's the incredible thing about stand-up comedy. The thing that makes me respect stand-up comedians so very much. It's just you. You are the person with whom the buck starts and stops. Like, there's a stand-up comic guy called Slade Ham. I don't think he's ever been on this show, but he's a buddy of mine, and I'm always just like, what you do is incredible. You go all over the world, you tell jokes, and it's just you, a microphone, and your audience, and that's it. And he's like, believe me, there's times where I wish I could turn around and blame a bad set on the bass player, but yeah, you're always responsible for your own stuff. But there seems to be a disconnect sometimes when stand-up comics go into other forms of broadcasting like television or like radio, where you kind of don't necessarily remember that these are people that have chosen to watch you because you happen to be on. They're not people that paid $5 to $10 to $15 to hundreds of dollars because they think you're so freaking brilliant. So there's times where I think the context of broadcasting is lost on stand-up comics. And when I hear someone like Whoopi Goldberg saying a riot would be fun to watch, no, it wouldn't. Riots are horrible, awful, terrible things involving destruction of property, loss of money, and sometimes loss of life and people getting hurt. There's never fun to watch a riot. I don't know what the hell she was thinking, but I think that's one of those examples of stand-up comics losing context within broadcasting. Like if someone paid you, $50 to come see your show and you said a riot would be fun to watch, you'd be like, oh, that crazy Whoopi. But to me, I'm like, the hell is this numbnut on television saying? No, riot's not good. Then again, I really don't know how someone who hosts The View could possibly be qualified to determine whether something is fun to watch or not. Okay, I'm done. Do you have anything to add about Whoopi Goldberg?
God, that show's terrible. I don't know how anybody watches The View.
Okay. What else?
Okay. Gwen Stefani says she constantly thinks about marrying Blake Shelton.
To which Adam Levine replied, join the club.
Tony Dow from Leave It to Beaver turns 73 years old today.
Oh, wow. Tony Dow. Oh, he was the guy on TV who couldn't stand the beef. Well, now that role is played by Anderson Cooper. But,
oh my God.
Hey, we should probably move swiftly on. What else happened recently?
Brett Favre sat down with Megyn Kelly on the Today Show to talk about concussions.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't answer the main question I have. Why does watching her show always make me feel like I have one? Would you, if you had a kid, allow them to play football, knowing what you know about head trauma and whatnot?
I don't. I would discourage against it. I mean, can't they play baseball?
Yeah, what's interesting? I didn't have football wasn't an option for me growing up. When I was a kid in England, we had a baseball team. We played that American sport. But for some reason, we didn't have a football team, probably because there were far too few teams that we could have played against. So we had a rugby team. And what's interesting is if you look at the incidence of head injury in rugby, it's not even in the same realm as concussion and other forms of head trauma that people sustain in football. Why? Well, you'd think, is counterintuitive, you would think it would be much more a part of the sport because of the lack of headgear, but because folks don't have helmets in rugby, you know what you don't do? You don't run head first into things expecting your helmet to protect you from it. So, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'd be more apt to have my kid play rugby, but I don't have a kid, and so I don't really know what I would do or how I would feel. I mean, ultimately, I really would hope that any kid of mine would play baseball, and there's a reason for that. And to me, when you're playing football, we talked about this on the show before, didn't we? How I find baseball to be intrinsically American, whereas football sort of a pinko commie sport.
Yeah, yeah, we did.
Meaning, in football, really, there's one sort of like dominant mind with the whole thing. There's the coach, the head coach. And like football to me is a game of chess between two dudes in their 60s a lot of the time. And all the players on the board do what they do. They do what they're told to do. Here's your plan. You will execute it like we ask you to, comrade. All for the greater glory of the New England Patriots. Like, that's what they're doing. They're basically just like, you go over here and you do what you're told. And they go, okay, we'll do it. And meanwhile, in baseball, I think the great thing about baseball is not only does it teach you how to play with others, not only does it teach you how to be a part of a team, but it is intrinsically American in that it is a game about personal responsibility. Everybody plays together as a team, but everybody also takes responsibility for their part. And there's the development of the individual's character in baseball in a way that I don't see there being in football. Does that sound fair?
Oh, it sounds fair. I've just never been a big football fan. I mean, I I like baseball. I like hockey. I like lacrosse. I like rugby. I don't know what it is about football. But yeah, I mean, your explanation as to your feelings about football, you sold me on it.
Yes, there you go. What else?
The CDC says drug-resistant gonorrhea is a public health crisis.
Yeah, so if you're single and if you are hitting the town, looking to mingle, looking to meet folks for physical and or romantic interaction, you want to be very careful about who you nude up with, because it is less and less safe to be, as George Costanza's mom once said, out there. Case in point, as Travis said, the CDC this past week just gone by said that drug-resistant gonorrhea is now officially to the point where it's a public health crisis. On the same week that the Jersey Shore returns to television? Coincidence? I don't think it is.
I think not.
I think not.
In his new book, former FBI Director James Comey said President Trump asked him to investigate the Russian P-tape story so he could reassure Melania it wasn't true.
Well, because if it was true, Melania would tell him, "You're in big trouble, Donald."
Oh, please tell me there's not more.
P-tape could help the book become a #1 bestseller.
Oh my God, there is more.
That's it. At least that's the. That's all I can do without getting us fired. Go on.
Okay, there we go. The Trump Organization denies a story that Donald Trump had a love child with his housekeeper in the 80s.
Well, yeah, if that was true, Trump would have sued Arnold Schwarzenegger for copyright infringement. I have the best illegitimate children with housekeepers, the best. No one has better legitimate kids than me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really terrific, fantastic, illegitimate kids. Go on.
Critics say that the National Guard is not big enough to handle the southern border.
Well, I mean, the southern border is really big. How? Yeah. I don't understand sending the National Guard. Like, the wall turned into the fence, turned into the army, turned into the National Guard. Like, what exactly is the National Guard? What do they do? Like, how many, like, what?
Well, the interesting situation,
vague, nebulous military organization, like the Coast Guard, that people don't fully understand.
Well, and they're down there for observation only. They're not there for enforcement action. So that's the interesting situation.
Yeah. So I guess they just call it in if they see somebody making a break for it.
Exactly what they do.
Well,
as we understand it, at least.
And a lot of people say that the National Guard isn't big enough to handle the amount of space that they're being asked to cover. But, if there's anyone who can make a small amount cover a vast territory, President Comey over there. Okay.
Should we talk about the thing?
Let's talk about the thing and the thing. So, two men were at a Starbucks in Philadelphia this past Thursday just gone by, and they were waiting for a friend to meet them before they all ordered. Pretty common at Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
You see folks do that there all the time. I know I've done it myself. I don't immediately order. I wait for my buddy so we can get our delicious hot beverages simultaneously and enjoy them simultaneously in concert, as it were. But this time, the employees at Starbucks called 911 and said the guys were trespassing. So the cops came and they wound up cuffing and arresting these two black guys. I watched the video because I was like, a lot could be being made of nothing. And you know what? Still, there could have been stuff happening there that I didn't see, but there just seems to be absolutely no reason whatsoever for this to have happened. A woman in the Starbucks took a video, and you can hear people saying things like they didn't do anything over and over again. And what did they do? The video went viral almost immediately, has racked up several million views. The CEO of Starbucks actually had to apologize, which is interesting for a company that does so much of that virtue signaling stuff we were talking about earlier in the show, saying we occupy the morally superior high ground here in most situations. Yeah, the CEO of Starbucks apologized, and he said that he'd like to meet with the men and apologize face to face. And Starbucks is obviously not going to press charges. The mayor of Philadelphia also called out Starbucks and called for, quote, implicit bias training for its employees. I can tell you one thing. These guys, if they want them, which they probably don't, get free foamy lattes for life.